Okay, thank you. Thank you so much. Welcome at one of the parallel sessions of the EU Industry Days, one dedicated to the single market. Ray Pinto and myself will have the pleasure of co-moderating this. The reason why we're doing that is not only because we look alike, but also because we are the co-curators of the Task Force 1 of the Industrial Forum. And that task force zooms in particular, at the single market and key performance indicators to measure competitiveness. Thank you to the audience online as well for joining us. We're having a panel of very distinguished speakers. Particular big thanks to Mr. Letta for joining us here again this afternoon. And as a brief introduction from our side, we at the European Roundtable for Industry, the ERT, have been holding the single market in our DNA since the 1980s. And we find that it should again become the forefront of the EU's priorities. And unfortunately, the single market has been absent from the State of the Union of President von der Leyen. This is something we would love to change, and we believe that the report, the high-level report that Mr. Letta is preparing, can help bring about that game changer for putting the single market again front and center of EU policy. With that, Ray, I will already pass it on to you.
Okay. Thank you very much, and thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for coming to this workshop. And we will make sure we finish on time so you can get to drinks or get to planes. But we are going to address this very important issue with my friend Philippe of ERT, and with other trade associations such as Eurochambers, Eurocommerce, and Business Europe. We came together and we signed a letter which I encourage all of you to read. It's a joint statement. We did this over a year ago, and we put in very clear practical recommendations and steps that we feel need to be in place to address these single market barriers. Why? Well, Digital Europe is one of many trade associations that have put examples in a lot of detail on the problems and obstacles it's creating. And those obstacles can extend from patients getting their health data from one member state to another. It could make manufacturers have to change their logistics and labels and rules anytime they want to do anything on sustainability, because the rules are different in Spain, or labels different in France, or something else. And that means they have to create a lot more CO2 just to address that. Or it's preventing jobs from getting into place. And with the 35 different examples that we have in our report, we noticed three things. We've noticed that many EU member states diverge from the regulation, create their own regulation, do what's called gold plating, right? That makes it very impossible to harmonize rules across the EU member states. We see that some member states, like in my country of France, there is the Loi de anti-gaspillage, the anti-waste law. And France has created that law. And I'm not going to say anything about the law, but it's only in France. It has to be in every member state, and it has to be harmonized. And those member states that don't do so, well, they should be looked at and scrutinized. And the other thing that we saw is that the major cost is not the big companies, though we have big companies on our panel, it's to the SMEs, the small businesses that really suffer. And so I think this is the real kind of reason we want to address that. Now, we've created a poll. Let's hope this works. Okay, let's try that again. There we go. So we've created a poll. It says, how satisfactory, so you have to go to Slido. I hope you saw the Slido number, or you've tagged in before already. There you go. Great. How satisfactory is the EU single market functioning nowadays in terms of the four freedoms, right? Circulation of people, goods, services, and capital. So while we're doing the panel, let's see what you guys are voting on. Maybe it'll change, maybe it'll get better, maybe it'll get worse, right? And we'll see the result there.
And it goes from 0 to 10.
Yes.
Being 0, not functioning satisfactorily, And you can scroll down until 10 if you find that the single market is working perfectly.
Yes, 10's the best, 0, well, is 0.
And you have to say how much you are satisfied of the single market, not on the debate
Yes.
that we're having now.
Yes, or our haircuts. Okay, without further ado, let's please introduce our first speaker. We are very honored to have you, Mr. Letta, and we know the ambition of this report is a great one. Please let us hear that ambition and what you aim to do, and what you want to hear from the companies on this panel and in the audience. What would you like to hear?
Thank you, Ray. Thank you, Philippe, for this invitation. For me, it's really great to be here and to share this panel with this fantastic rest of the panelist set and with all of you, of course. I was asked by the European Council through the two presidencies, the trio of presidencies, so the Swedish, the Spanish one, and the next one, the Belgian one, and the European Commission to write a report, a high-level report, to be presented at the European Council next March 21st, so before the European elections. We have a tradition of high-level reports on the future of the single market. First one was Padua-Schioppa report in the 80s, then the Delors Livre Blanc in 90, and then the last one was Mario Monti's report in 2010, in the middle of the financial crisis. Now we have the feeling that everything is changing because the present situation after the big challenges, and when I say big challenges, I say, of course, the Russian aggression to Ukraine, the COVID, but also Brexit. We usually, when we discuss about a single market, we forget the fact that Brexit was something very negative for the single market for many reasons, because the UK was a big engine in favor of the single market, always a big engine, and we miss the UK within the European Union on the single market, and also because the single market had his proof of resilience during the Brexit negotiations and the post-Brexit. So many subjects that were challenging the single market unity. During Brexit negotiations, we understood how crucial is to be united, how crucial is not to have the single market fragmented in a Europe à la carte, and how to avoid the cherry picking. And I think it's exactly the mood that I'm trying to apply in my mission. So I'm in a very, I would say, listening mood in this first phase of my mission, so until the end of the year. I'm traveling around Europe. I was in Helsinki some days ago. I'm here now. I will visit Luxembourg. I will visit Czech Republic, Croatia, all the different countries to try to listen, to understand, to share, and to debate and to discuss. Because I strongly believe that these reports are useful if they are part of a collective research activity, not just the idea of someone who is studying something, but I would say a collective intelligence activity. This is why I'm trying to be here, to listen, and this is what I'm doing now. And this is why I'm very much grateful to European Roundtable and to Digital Europe, because starting from their manifesto, their letter, there's a big push in big boost to consider the single market a business for the future, not a business for the past, not a matter for the past, but something for the future of Europe. We had a panel before discussing on some of these topics, and I will be more than, I would say, happy to listen what this panel will say. I'll try then to summarize and to to land somewhere in March, before March, and to present my proposals. My proposals will be with the idea to give a contribution to strengthen the European Union integration and the European Union competitiveness. I'm lucky because there's this report that the European Commission asked Mario Draghi to write on European competitiveness, so we will try to coordinate ourselves, to work together. That is because I hope that our ideas can help next legislature. But I strongly believe that our ideas are absolutely useless without a debate with the concrete actors, protagonists on the ground. And this is why I'm very happy to be here in this opportunity in Malaga. And I stop here immediately because I am in a listening mode.
Excellent, thank you very much, and we'll be coming back to you. And I'm going to pass it to Philippe in just a second, but just to let everybody know, on the poll, you voted, and this is very interesting, 30% of you, about 35% of you feel that the single market is below average or seriously underperforming. 35% of you feel that it's above average and performing very well. And then the rest of the 30% of you feel it's about 6, so just above average. So I think generally the mood is quite good. We'll see if it stays that way after this presentation. And before we go to the panelists, I have this little device, and we're going to want to hear from you. So you can either give us your own views, problems you see in the single market, or you could ask some of these questions that we're going to be asking as well here. What expectations do you see, for example, in such a report that Mr. Leto is producing, or that you want to see in the next mandate of the European Commission for them to address, or the biggest governance obstacles you're seeing in the single market? So some ideas. Think about it. But now we're going to go pass to Philippe, and we'll listen to the panel first.
Thank you, Ray. Thank you, Mr. Letta, for the introduction. Ray, in a way, I'm relieved that the audience didn't vote for a 10 for the well-functioning of the single market. Otherwise, we could all pack up shop and go home already. 6 is cautiously optimistic. There is work to be done. And what is important to do is look at the nitty-gritty. Where are the barriers? We have to start from the evidence. And this is why we constructed the panel as such, that we would have companies representing the energy and the digital sectors that can also testify of the challenges of fragmentations that they are facing. And we can also have the input from the European Commission, from Mary Veronica, who is concretely working on enforcement and implementation in the DG GROW. And then we will come back to Mr. Letta for a wrap-up. But of course, we will also introduce before the wrap-up enough time for Q&A with the audience, so you'll be able to raise your hand, chip into the debate with a comment, a question, and we will also monitor Slido in case you have any questions that you want to post over there. Eva, let us start with you from Iberdrola. Please introduce yourself, and we will try to foresee amongst, around 5 minutes per speaker, before then opening to Q&A.
So thank you very much, Philippe. My name is Eva Chamizzo. I'm Director for European Union for European Affairs for Iberdrola. Iberdrola is a major electric utility, and it's present all over the world. Our market is the EU, apart from Spain, which is our origin. We're present in the US, in Mexico, in Brazil, where we are very much developing renewables. We're the first largest wind developer in Europe and the second in the US. We're also in the European Union, and we are in Australia, Japan, so a lot of different jurisdictions. And we have been investing in the last 20 years, for you to make an idea of how much involved we are in the decarbonization question. We have been investing for 140 billion in the last 20 years, reduced to renewables, smart grids, and storage. This is what our investments are about. And we are a bit scared of what is happening with the single market because years ago, talking about the single market was stating the obvious. We all believed in the single market. But little by little, I don't know, of course, the crisis has not been very much helping because member states have been fearing and been scared of certain circumstances, but we're going backwards. And the single market is essential is one of the biggest assets of the European Union, is one of the biggest elements to attire investments. The internal market for us means similar regulations, legal certainty, similar procedures, similar rights, similar obligations, and a key for consumers means competition. Competition between companies, competition between everyone, so that we can offer the best cost-efficient solutions to produce goods, in our case electricity, with lower prices, and with high quality. So it's not just about the price, it's price plus high quality services and goods for citizens. So our situation in the European Union is, apart from Spain, we're present in Portugal, Italy, Greece, France, Germany, Poland, Ireland, Sweden, Norway, which is, let's say, in the internal market, due to its special sector. And we are also in the UK, but of course UK is not in single market, but I'll come back to the UK in a minute. We have been facing challenges, but what we have now is a step backwards that we can't really accept. The crisis has brought a lot of emergency measures. The Commission proposed in the electricity sector European Union emergency measures. And what happened? Member states said, no, 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 I need my small national market for me. So we saw at the end in the emergency measures a European regulation saying, to tackle the emergency crisis, we're going to do this. Notwithstanding, member states can maintain or adopt whatever they want. This is the summary of the regulation that we got. And fortunately, this is not a crisis mode. This is unfortunately what you're beginning to see in a lot of the member states. So what we have seen during the crisis is 14 different regulations in cap of revenues, different technologies affected depending on what the member states decided, huge differences in what was applied. We have been having caps of 58 to 180 along all the different jurisdictions in which we are present. And the consequences of this distortion of the internal market have not been good for consumers, good for anything. No, the European Commission has acknowledged in the opinion that they had to give to assess the emergency measures that the benefits of the cap did not outweigh the negative impacts of the fragmentation and incertitude that was created by these regulations. And I will give you a number. Minus 59% of financial investment decisions in 2022 versus 2021. I repeat, minus 59%. So this is a great element to reconsider what we have to do in the internal market. The UK has understood it. UK is saying, oh, we blame the decision to leave the internal market. And we ourselves are putting it at risk when we have the single market as a great tool to develop and to have a better economy, better quality of services for the citizens. So we really need to go back to the single market idea. And I am so happy that Mr. Leda is here and is going to get ideas in order to say how we can improve and how we can finally develop the single market. And I was asked to give some reality elements of why we see that the single market is having problems. I talked already about the fragmentation. I haven't talked, but I am just saying interventions of the market are being very obvious, and they are very, very, very bad in terms of cost-efficient decisions and development of good solutions that the taxpayer does not have to pay. We have enormous problems with permitting. A utility like us, we need to ask for permits to develop generation assets, storage, etc., etc. You would not imagine what we face I picked some examples. For instance, we have distant rules in some member states that in practice determine the prohibition to install renewable parks. Permitting for wind that is linked to a certain type of turbine. So because these permits go and are very long, when we get the permit after years, the turbine does not exist anymore, so the permit is not valid. Grid connection issues. We obtained a license to build, a permit in 2020, impossible to connect the plant until 2025, when our building construction time is 1 year. That was for small photovoltaic. Timing for issuing permits, in some member states, we are at 4.5, 5, 6 or 7 years when we need a year or two to build the plant. So are we really sure that we're getting what we need? The RED 3 has been modified. There was a regulation on permitting. It has brought some solutions. It has brought solutions, and we're experiencing them in certain member states. But what we need is implementation. Now we need to implement what is, and even to go more, we need key performance indications. I didn't want to name and shame giving these examples, saying about member states, in which member states we have had these problems. But the key performance indicators have to name and shame what member states are doing and not doing enough. And one last but not least problem that we're having, taxes. Taxes is the national competence, the sovereign competence. So what is our problem? We approve rules, we develop the single market with material content rules, and afterwards member states approve taxes that hamper all this construction. So we really hope for the Energy Tax Directive to be developed. The Commission presented a very good proposal, but it's absolutely stopped. Member states do not want to give and harmonize anything on taxes. So these are the main issues that we are dealing with. And in reference to Mr. Letterwood, I would hope that the opinion gives, apart from, of course, a lot of analysis that will be needed, is call things by their name. We need clarity. We need to send clarity. We're not only producing rules. It is important to have regulations, but it is important to implement them, and it is very important that member states do not use the national competence niches to hamper all this single market good legislation that will be done in the European Union.
Eva, thank you. Thank you very much, Eva. Please.
Sorry.
Oh, you could do better than that. So thank you very much, Eva. And now I'd like to go to our digital representative. So we have Wouter Bayon, I hope I pronounced that correctly, right, of ASML. And if you don't know who ASML is, right, you need to know, because everything that makes the lights go on, or the planes fly, or the buildings to be built, or anything on this planet, well, you need very important components, which is called chips. And ASML produce something that is unique and very European, that's needed worldwide. And it's here in Europe, and we need to protect it, as we need to protect Iberdrola to be, you know, world-class companies.
ASML.
What?
ASML.
Yes, what did I say?
Iberdrola.
No, I said no, ASML and Iberdrola.
Okay.
Yeah, we need both of them to be global champions. I don't see why Iberdrola cannot be a global champion. It's the single market that will hold you back, right? And maybe that's the case for you as well. So why don't you introduce yourself? Let us know about ASML and what problems do you see in the single market?
Perfect. So 5 years ago, I don't think ASML would have been at this conference or at this panel. We were a much smaller company. What I'm seeing every day when I'm going to the headquarters is that we're growing massively. See loads and loads of cranes and loads of machines leaving our premises. What is it that we do? I think Ray already gave some hints. We're in the business called lithography. So we, you know, to use Politico, which all of us of course read, you know, we're printing chips. I think if we really you know, simplify it. We were born 40 years ago as a spin-off of Philips, which was of course a forefighter of the single market. and we remained under the radar for quite some time, and I think it was around COVID that we really sort of came to the surface when everyone had their chip shortages. Like I said, we're growing quickly. Soon we will reach the 43,000 employee mark. 55% of our employees are based in Europe. We assemble and manufacture in Eindhoven, or Veldhoven I have to say, and Berlin. And you know, I will throw some numbers at you, which might put a smile on your face. So we assemble, produce, and source 90% of our machines in Europe. We ship 90% of those machines to Asia. And 90% of the geopolitical pressure on our company comes from our friends in the United States of America. But we're here to talk about the single market and why this matters. Of course, I wouldn't be from the semiconductor industry if I didn't mention the EU Chips Act. This has been a great token of appreciation for these critical components called chips. However, it's only the start. As a matter of fact, I think the Chips Act will be a little bit of a moot point if we don't get the single market to work. And let me take you on a journey. So we have two of our largest customers, Intel and TSMC. They've announced investments in Europe, in Germany. What we will see, or what we have seen, is that in the past 15 years, we've only seen very incremental investments in chip manufacturing in Europe, and that we want to change, apparently. We as ASML, we have about, well, let's say 450 to 500 machines running at full steam across the EU. And with every machine, you know, we need engineers to keep them running, to make sure that, you know, when a component is not working, we fix that ASAP. So we have people on site 24/7. I wanted to talk about two things about single market barriers, if you allow me. The one thing is, I think, relatively simple and straightforward. It's talent, a single market for talent. We feel that we might end up with having just a handful of investments in Europe if we don't fix the talent problem. What we don't want to end up in is in a situation where our biggest customers, Intel and TSMC, have committed quite some funds, where European taxpayers have committed funds to building factories, but we don't get the workers to keep those machines running. And that's a serious issue. At the same time, there's a whole ecosystem around those two large companies, including ASML, that also need a lot of talent. This year we had at some point almost 3,500 vacancies open, and we simply couldn't find the people. And that's creating some major operational difficulties for us. That's the talent part. The other part is maybe a little bit more specific, and that's related to the Posted Workers Directive. As I said, we have, let's say, hundreds of machines running at full speed across the EU. We need to send people, mostly from Veldhoven, to various parts of the European Union. But we're confronted with, you know, a pretty significant administrative burden for posting these employees. Ultimately, it's about, you know, a check-the-box exercise that we have to fulfill. And there's a notification requirement that wildly differs across the EU. And I think that's for us, I think, a major issue, that we're confronted with different implementations. We understand and we support the intentions of this directive. And we're in good conversation with the European Commission. But we do need relatively surgical amendments to harmonize exemptions and to exclude things like short-term travel and potentially some critical sectors for this directive not to become a showstopper. Let's say, to sum up, I think we are as a company a firm believer in the power of the single market. We wouldn't be here as a company if it wasn't for the single market. And we hope to, let's say, see more investments in Europe, but also for a company like ours to be able to serve key markets outside of the EU. And for that we need particularly, you know, those two things and a strong single market. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Wouter. Good that you stress this point. We don't only need a single market to function seamlessly for doing business within the EU, but then also use it as a tremplin, as a springboard for doing business globally, internationally. With that, I would like to pass on the floor as well to you, Mary. Please tell us a bit more about your work in the Commission to watch over the correct implementation and enforcement of the single market. And if you listen to these stories, or if other companies also come to you and to DG Grow or to the Single Market Enforcement Task Force, how do you deal and address the barriers? And also, please don't hesitate to share with us any recommendations that you would have also for the report of Mr. Letta.
Well, thank you very much for organizing this panel. It's also my pleasure to be here and have this conversation in live. First of all, I'm now currently director for the single market enforcement for 2 years. So I'm happy to be in this, I would say, really heart of the single market making. And that's the first time ever in my career, because I've joined the Commission now 14 years ago, and I was director for the ETS, emission trading system, before, so know a little bit about the decarbonization and the potential that renewables have here in Europe and globally. And then also I was director for the, well, in DG ECFIN we call it Economic Affairs and Financial Affairs, namely working on the, more on the structural reform. So this is the first time I'm here also in a function of trying to understand and trying to help that the single market also delivers in practice.
Okay, fine.
And I maybe have said this already on one of my previous panels, but it was much easier when I was producing the proposals and then getting them through the Council and the Parliament than now, where I have to face this, I would say, the most important step or in the life cycle of the European legislation, which is implementation, application, enforcement. But I have to say that I do not talk about the single market in the past, because of course then I would lose my job. But beyond that, I still believe in the single market. And I hope that also the report, Enrico, that you are going to produce are going to give us, I would say, this reinforced and renewed mission, which I personally believe we have with the single market. Now, I will also try to say a little bit what we do from my perspective to keep the single market, I would say, the biggest asset that we have in Europe, and then also trying to come very quickly to one or two issues that you mentioned. Now, first, what we do to help the agreed law to get, implemented, but not only implemented, and as I understand also very well from you, Wouter, implemented in a way that is going to be also simple and sort of, easy to comply with. So, as the Commission, of course, I don't need to cite the treaty to tell you that we are the guardians of the treaty, and we are very proud about this task. But this task does not. It's not only, bringing member states to the court and then waiting for the good decision. This, of course, stays and will remain one of our, I would say, very important tool that we have. And I personally think that we need to use this tool targeted, but very, very efficiently. And also, I would not hesitate to say that this is a very effective tool, to the infringements. But there is much more than that. The recent toolbox of the single market enforcement tools has also more of the tools which are in the area of catching also, the legislation before it becomes the law. So we have recently, well, I'm here now for 2 years, and I'm looking into these issues also from a little bit more strategic perspective. And I have to say that we have this tool, which is called SMTD, Single Market Transparency Directive, with very important information system, which we are also presenting outside. But, the system, which was set up not by us, but also, by 2 co-legislators, with the purpose to look into the draft measures, in the goods area and in the area of the ICT, with the purpose also that we are preventing, the barriers to trade within the single market at the stage of draft laws. So member states do notify to us the draft laws in the goods, and we have many. I mean, in the area of environment, in the area of health, in the area of digital technologies, and very often, we have to issue, we call it detailed opinion, but this is basically recommendations to the member states how to adjust their national law already at that stage. And here, I honestly think we have still a lot of potential jointly with member states. I hope member states are here with me or they're listening to us, because these are, this is the tool which has really a very, important mission to adjust the single market interest or angle at the grassroots, I would say. And here, many of you, and thank you for that, from the industry part, are participating in this process. This is a very transparent process, and all of you can participate, give us opinions before we act, before other member states act. So, first, my message is, I really think we can do much more still in the preventive stage. When member states are legislating their national legislation, sometimes transposing EU law, but not always, also bringing in place their national legislation. So this is one important tool. The other one, which I want to mention, is of relatively younger, I would say, nature or age, and that is the Single Market Enforcement Task Force. This is also the task force which is in my directorate, and I'm very happy that we are putting in place quite important projects which are looking at the barriers from the user perspective. So it's not Mary Veronica and his team in the Brussels, Berlaymont building looking what we should do. No, we are listening to our stakeholders, to the industry, and that helps us detect the barriers which are very, impactful or important for them in the single market. So that brings me to one of our projects, Eva, that we recently put in place, and this is the project on permitting. So the Single Market Task Force is the forum where the Commission is discussing these barriers with member states. I do not have an easy task because I have to explain why the barrier is there, and even more, identify barriers in each member state that are relevant for that. Now you can imagine permitting. If you listen to Eva, there are member states that have really good, process, and I have to say this, there are also very good member states. You have one single entry point, digitalized, and and then you have member states where the challenge is much bigger, and the challenges also for us are bigger. So what we have done here is basically we work together with DG ENER, and that's the beauty of the single market. It is usually not only one horizontal, sector or service. If I want to do and move things in the single market, I usually need to go beyond DG GROW, in this case, DG ENER, and, we were identifying these barriers. There was a study. And what we did then after, also sit down with member states, identify good practices, how to address these barriers. Because in my view, what works really best with member states is that, we can identify what works for you, businesses, and that someone already implemented it. So it's not something which we would invent, top down or, from the academic discussions. but something that works in practice. So we have now 5 best practices, things like single entry point, digital, permits and things like that. So this is one of our projects, and I have to say we work very, very hard. These are also, the elements which found its way because we pushed it into the European semester, member states' recommendations, what they need to do at home. So you see, using this different toolbox, not necessarily always, going to the court, but working hard, with the troops on the battlefield, and deliver this, day-to-day important elements of the puzzle of the single market. Another project that we have also in SMED, and I'm happy to sit next to Wouter, is exactly, in this area. We call it provision of services cross-border and, sending posted workers to deliver the service. And there I have to admit, Wouter, that the job is very, very difficult as well and, hard. Thank you for also coming to the SMED working group or task force to explain the issue. This really helps me enormously. It was the same with the Wind Industry Association, but in this case we invited ASML, who came with a concrete file, explained the journey, how it goes. And then at the end, of course, we believe, and that was said at the meeting, that the company wants to respect the EU law. So it's not sort of avoiding the rules or, finding the tricks around. But when you want to comply, the administrative burden is very high. So the story that you tell empowered us in SMED to come up with 5 archetypes. Again, we dig into the good practices in the different member states. And now what we are doing, I with my team, we are having bilateral conversations with individual member states, with my counterparts that are members of SMED, sort of ambassadors of the single market, but always also with the people who are in charge of that law in a member state. And that usually is not single market, authority. It is usually a specialized, line ministry, of course, with a very specific angle, and also rightly so, looking at the, social dumping to protection of workers, which also is very, legitimate. I really need to say this and stress this objective. And I keep telling them that, you see, companies want to respect the law. It's not about that. It is just that we need to do it in a smart way. And I very often talk to inspectors. And, then you discover how much there are already smart solutions. But of course, one thing is sort of, empowering each other or, understanding the issues. And then this needs to go to the political level. And the political level in the country is the one that needs to also steer, I would say, this type of discussions. Because very often, we end these discussions while this would require a change of national law, which I recognize. But then, of course, the story starts because it's not enough, a goodwill of an expert or, a conversation. Then you really need also a guidance, a steer that helps this type of legislations, which are with the intention to comply with the EU law, but also, in a way that it's not burdensome for businesses. So this is SMED, Single Market Enforcement Task Force. I think, throughout these 30 years, we have developed a number of them. I have more to say. I don't want to monopolize the floor right now. But for me, I will stop for now. But one very important thing, which I really believe in, is that, the single market is a joint effort. It's a joint effort. It's a joint venture between member states and us. It should not be, and for this, we need to have loyal cooperation, and we need to have also ambition and political will. And that's, I think, very, very important, because this is the steering energy that gives us also, the fuel to continue.
Mary, thank you so much. You've touched on a point that is also widely shared by the business community. that we feel that the European Commission is very focused on putting new legislation on the table, but the hard work lies often into the correct implementation and enforcement of what is already existing, and also the detection of where problems and frictions exist. Therefore also you've also testified very compellingly about this, that when a company comes to talk, and when a company can display and mention the evidence of a particular problem, that you're then also willing to run with it, take it up and take it forward. But what is often lacking still is that cooperation between the European Commission and the member states, plus the dialogue with the business community, to bring the right actors around the table and then really remove the barrier from A to Z. We do have some time still for also questions and interaction with the audience. Ray, shall I leave you to manage?
Yes, please. If we can just go back to the Slido so that people can see the Slido number while they do that. I want you to now, it's up to you, I want you can either ask a question, and I have it right here, or you could go up to Slido, or you could raise your hand if you have a question. What would be great is if you could go to your phones right now and write down a word or a sentence of where you see a single market barrier, either that affected you or that you saw as a problem. I won't name names, it's anonymous, but I can read them out so that people here on the panel can get a feeling as to what is troubling businesses, what is troubling stakeholders. In the meantime, as you do that, I just want to read out a couple of interesting points that we made jointly. ERT, Digital Europe, but also Business Europe, Eurochambers and Eurocommerce. I encourage you to read this letter that we asked. We said we need a single market test, right? And you talked a little bit about this, Marie-Veronique, right? We need the single market test in place. We need an unconditional guarantee of freedom to trade in the single market. National authorities should fully respect the principle of mutual recognition and stop restricting market access based on national rules. These are just some things that we've highlighted in here. You will have others, and it's important you raise your voice now so that people who are listening, right, can make an action. We have a question right over here. Please, if you can just introduce yourself and ask your question.
Sure. Maybe more a comment, adding on what you were saying. Dirk van Tichem, I represent the European textile industry. Philip, you were saying there's a lot of legislation. I can concur with that. In our sector, the Commission is preparing 16 pieces of legislation. So textiles is becoming a very regulated sector, which in itself is not necessarily a problem, because the purpose of that legislation is to push our industry to be more sustainable, more transparent, all good. The concern is very much in the quality of that legislation, and quality meaning that we already know today that part of those 16 will be left to member states to actual implementation. For example, they will introduce a so-called extended producer responsibility, like a taxation on the end of use of textile products. Member states will individually decide what is the level of that taxation. So we will have a fragmentation. There is a problem of timing. Some member states anticipate European legislation and move faster. In France today, there is I don't have any French here, there is the Loi AGEC, which is the anti-gaspillage law, which is basically anticipating the eco-design regulation from the Commission. So if you work in France, already you are constrained by certain restrictions which do not yet operate in other member states. So the diversity in timing is a second problem. And I would say a third problem that we will have is monitoring and control of the implementation of the legislation. Again, we have a long list ahead of us. For example, in chemicals, it's quite important. One piece on the table is to restrict up to 1,000 chemicals. We know for sure the implementation of that regulation will be different from member state to member state. So my point is, as an industry, we are very dependent on having that single integrated market, because textiles is a very global competitive industry. very competitive. So we need that single integrated market. With that legislation coming, again, as a principle, we're okay with that. But the way it's been prepared now is not looking so good. And so it's just maybe a warning, can I say? And of course, we concur with you, work together, dialogue, etc. We do that. But just adding that also within the textile industry, there's some potential disruptions coming as well. And if I may, maybe an extra point, it's a bit separate. What is already happening today, where many of my companies complain, of course, in these times of energy crisis, is the state aid system. We have a competition on state aid between member states. You know, who has the biggest wallets gives more support. And I can tell you it leads to a lot of frustration within my board, you know, within my textile CEOs who accuse each other. How much did you get for your energy bill, etc. So that's something on top.
No, thank you. Thank you for those comments. We have some comments over here as well. If you can please introduce yourself.
Hi, thank you. Thank you for the good presentations you had. Very good ones from Eva especially. I mean, the practical examples of the facts where we are living with at the moment. Matti Mannonen from Technology Industries of Finland. I have a comment, a couple of comments related to your subjects. First of them goes to this problem that we have an instrument which is the Commission, which is made for making regulation, and if you have like only a hammer, then all problems look like nails, and you shouldn't be like doing more and more regulation, which is anyways the only thing that they are doing basically. So there should be more focus on the implementation, like was said there. Then the second thing is the jungle of subsidies, which was already mentioned. But then the third thing is this aging population, which is it's a drastic thing for the whole Europe. It's we are not going to be competitive in future if we cannot think in a different way. Also in this aspect, we have to get more young people, working age people, and then of course when you talk about professionals, we have to think again about where the people actually work, how they do their social security, how they pay their taxes, because more and more young people decide to work somewhere else than Europe, but they can still work for Europe and in Europe, and how it will benefit the European economy. That's a crucial question. Thank you.
Matti, thank you. Thank you very much. Again, raise your hands if you have a comment. We have some time left. Okay, there's a gentleman over there. As we send the mic over to you, I'm just going to intervene because we got some interesting comments here on our tablet. 30 years later, 70% of barriers are remaining. Shouldn't we rather focus on opportunities, good practice, and results, and see how to enhance them? Good comment. One barrier that we will never see solved is language. Over to you.
Thank you. Sorry, my name is Eric de Hark. I'm the chairman of the Benelux Business Roundtable, which in short is a small version of the European Roundtable for a small part of Europe, but a very dynamic part. And we have some 30 of the largest companies a part of our structure. The last high-level report was 2010 from Professor Monti. The world has changed, as we know. I've looked at the program of these 3 days, and it should not be a surprise that almost 70% of the topics that we are talking about touch upon energy and the energy transition. Digital is part of it, batteries are part of it, what you brought up is part of it, and what you brought up is part of it. There's another very big difference with 2010 and the changing world is that we now have a date, which is 2030, at which we have all taken the obligation to have mitigated our targets, our emissions, with a varying number of percentages. It started at 50s, it's 55, and now it goes to 60. whatever. But the date is a firm date. And my hope would be that in your high-level report there will be a specific chapter on what needs to be done to make sure that companies who are willing to invest and who have committed to those targets are able to achieve them. And that is mainly, I think it is mainly part of the harmonization of regulation. We all know that is going to be an enormous task because we all know how much individual member states are in love with their own projects and are willing to defend them until push comes to shove. So I think that's a very important element of your, I hope, of your high-level report.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. We have just a few minutes left, and I think what we'd like to do is just pass it back to the panel. Less than a minute. Any statements you want to make? Any wish you would like to see in the letter report or in the next EU mandate? Maybe we can start from you, and you can, of course, also say something as well, right? For less than a minute. Please start.
Yeah, so
Eva.
I really think that there are solutions. There is probably will, but we need to go sufficiently fast and try to forget the small niches of protection that the European Union sometimes allows, because what we get from the single market is much more than the state aid that we get from a certain member state. The entire single market, if it works correctly. So let's go for it. Let's go beyond barriers.
Eva, thank you very much. Mary Varani?
Well, what I take from this panel is basically, first, single market is the future. Second, we need coherence and consistency when applying the rules. Third, we need ambition and speed. And then also, what I think is very important, political steer. So that's what I take from here.
Great. Wouter?
Yeah, so touching back on some of the things that have been said, what I find very reassuring to hear from my neighbor, of course, all the things she said about the single market task force, but also I think the ability of the European Commission to work like you do with DG Energy, I hope you do the same with DG Connect.
We do.
Is that the interdepartmental thinking needs to happen in Brussels, but also at the member state level, because I think, you know, to your point, we're dealing with many challenges. We're dealing with fights for subsidies, supposedly. I think all that requires is better coordination, you know, at the Brussels level, but also at the national level. I'll leave it at that.
Great, excellent. We saw member states work together during COVID. Why did that stop, right? Please.
Your point is the point. We work together when we are close to at the eye of the storm, close to the disaster, and we need to work together to cooperate even when the sun rises and things are going well and there's no pressure to be, and that is politically not easy to say. I was looking at the poll, and I was thinking what would be my vote. And in reality, I would vote in a different way for the 4 freedoms. I would say 10 for goods. I would say 7 maybe for people. I would say 5 for services and 3 for capitals. And I say that because at the end of the day, there's not one single market. That is my point. There are a completely different situation when you go straight to one, to another. So I think there's a problem of unity of the single market. That is, and it was at the end of the day, at the end of our panel, it is very clear. There's another big point that is, I'm very happy for what you said and for your support. I would like just to remind myself and to all of you that the launch and the success of the single market in the 80s and in the 90s was because of the big support by the big names of industry at that time. And not only the associations. Personal Ronaldo and Messi of the industry at that time, they were personally committed on this big issue. And they were close to Jacques Delors in the achievement. This is what I'm very frank here. I don't see today the same commitment. I see the commitment of the associations. You are here, and it is great. I see the commitment of the people involved in these topics. I would like to see the personal commitment of the big names of the European industry to clearly say, if this commitment is not there, I am quite sure that the commitment of the governments, of politics, will be less important. You will have my personal commitment. I'm here because you know, Jacques Delors once said it's impossible to fall in love with the single market. I fall in love with the single market. I think single market is the core of the European integration and is everything. But I know that the political leaders, the prime ministers, will be really committed only if there's a clear commitment by, from our society, by the people which the possibility to move and to influence also the political debate. And I say this is crucial. I heard one word that was for me a very meaningful word, and I would like to use it in my la recherche du Graal que je suis en train de faire. And this word is skills. Because if you think goods, people, services, capitals are a division of 4 categories that are a little bit categories of the past. Where are the skills there? And in reality, we know very well that we need to attract skills. And it is your final point that is the crucial one and the most important one. We need to attract skills. And how can we change the single market to be able to attract skills? Because it is probably what is absolutely necessary. But we are out of time, so I would like just to end up by saying that in this panel there's one missing in action actor, which is the most important one, because we discussed about enforcement. You are in charge for the enforcement, but we know very well that the enforcement is in the hands of member states. And it is impossible not to have the enforcement in the end of member states. We know very well it would be politically impossible to move the enforcement from the member states to Brussels. I would be happy to have some part of competences in Brussels, but I know that it is impossible today. So the key point is how to have a national enforcement effective and really working everywhere without all the asymmetries that Mary just told us. So I think one part of our work together in this our joint research activity is to understand how we can have the enforcement by national institutions really working and not having this present jeopardized situation that is not working. So I think it is one big part of our activity, and you are part of this solution, of the solution, because the possibility from your side to have an impulse on new ideas and also to convince at national level entrepreneurs and at the member states level to be really very proactive and protagonist of the debate, and not protagonist of the debate of the state aid just at the state aid level. Because yes, state aid are important. I'm your fourth point is crucial. Today we have a big problem because we have a fragmentation because of state aid. And it's clear that we are going towards a more fragmented single market because of that. So, frankly speaking, I think we had a fantastic discussion. I like this discussion because it was a discussion without absolutely any problem to say and to use the right words, very nitty-gritty. I hope the future and the next 6 months of our discussions will be exactly in the same mood. And I really thank you for your support, your leadership on these topics, your vision, because it is exactly what we need. I ask you, please, to ask to your Messi and to your Ronaldo to be, please, vocal for the future of Europe. We need their vocal support.
Excellent, thank you.
Thank you.
Without further ado, thank you very much. I know people have to grab planes or have cocktails. And Philippe and I, thank you.